play right, cause they can't miss. All about the game, that's a cold switch. Serving up the truth, call it ruthless. Tune in and get your fix from Blake and Vish Sports.
I was just going to ask you, Vish, or if you want to ask me first, where do you think Ben Simmons should go? So basically, here's the situation. We saw what happened, or if you didn't see, you should check it out. What happened in the last game against the Hawks? It was after the game. There were some harsh comments from Doc and Joel. This offseason's been kind of bitter. They've been getting a lot of trade offers for him. And then recently, Ben Simmons said he is not going to report. He wants traded to another team. And so now the question is, what team should he go to? What is a good fit? So, Vish, I'm going to ask you, who do you think should trade for Ben Simmons and why?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of teams, right, involved in this. I saw the report that Ben Simmons wanted to be the quote unquote in California. But then I also saw a report earlier today saying Ben Simmons just doesn't want to be on the Sixers. But to me, I think the best fit for Ben Simmons in terms of his future in the NBA and his career in terms of realizing his potential, I would have to give you two scenarios. One scenario has a team, one doesn't. To me, the best fit in terms of Ben Simmons becoming a solo star and all of that is going to some team that's not very good, that's rebuilding, that's willing to put four shooters on the floor around him and let him play point guard and bring the ball up the floor and kind of do a bootleg version of what Giannis has done for Milwaukee. Now, that style of basketball with Ben Simmons will have its limitations and have its ceiling. Ben Simmons might ultimately get you to the playoffs and you would lose in the first round of the playoffs. But in that style of basketball, I think Ben Simmons could average somewhere between like 20 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds with stellar defense, all of that. I think that's a possibility. I mean, his first year, that rookie season, we saw a stretch. Now, granted, they played some really bad teams in that stretch. But with Ersan Ilyasova, Marco Bellinelli, no Joel Embiid to clog the paint, Ben Simmons carried Philadelphia, and that's when people were like, wow, Ben Simmons. I mean, Colin Cowherd was calling him the next LeBron at that time because he was playing with a bunch of shooters and just him, and it was because of that. And then, obviously, Philly has not done a good job building around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, taking shooting away from all of them, having one shooter in J.J. Redick, and then having Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, and then taking a step further and signing Al Horford and all of that. Those are not smart decisions. Now they added shooting back with Seth Curry, Danny Green, all those type guys. And Ben Simmons struggled this year. I don't think Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are a mix. I think they're individually talented players. So that would be the first scenario for Ben Simmons. I don't know what team fits that scenario at this point. I don't know what team would risk.
I have one. Maybe the Kings.
But they have De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, and Davion Mitchell. They've invested heavily into their point guard situation. I think Fox is probably gone because they have Halliburton and Davion Mitchell. But the other team, obviously, to me, is the Warriors. He's a perfect fit for the Warriors. Everybody gets so caught up in Ben Simmons shooting, but when you add him with Steph and Klay, those two shooters, and you add his passing ability, his defense, can you imagine Ben Simmons and Draymond Green on the same team playing defense?
I would not want to see that. I would not want to see Ben Simmons and Draymond on the court at the same time.
Oh, you wouldn't want to see them on the offensive end.
Yeah.
Both of them would be passing up open jump shots. But on the defensive end, it would be unreal. But honestly, I think that's the one team that could really bring out his potential, because the other thing is their guards don't handle the ball. They don't put a lot of ball handling duties on Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. They have Draymond Green initiate their offense a lot of the time, and they've made it work with another semi-wing who couldn't shoot but could distribute the ball, handle the ball with versatility. And Iguodala in the past, Simmons could be kind of it's not the same type of player, but you could kind of make it work with two wings that can't shoot but are both highly skilled, can handle the ball. And we've seen they struggled last year in 4-on-3 situations when Steph got trapped. Draymond Green used to be the king of throwing the lob in 4-on-3 and being decisive and going to the basket. We saw last year that Draymond Green, he didn't want to take shots. He didn't want to be aggressive doing that. Ben Simmons would be more aggressive to me in those situations. I think the Warriors probably make the most sense from that standpoint, but I still stand by, I don't know what the team is, but if there's a team that's willing to trade for Ben Simmons and make him put 4 shooters around him and just make him their franchise player for a little bit. Not saying you would go far, but you could make the playoffs to me with that strategy.
Yeah, so like the Warriors, I see that, but I cannot understand the Draymond and Simmons on the same court at the same time. Like, sure, defense would be insane, but offense, like, yeah, Iguodala was a guy who wasn't that great of a shooter, but you couldn't just let him just stand there and just shoot
True.
because you know what that man's doing in the playoffs with the death beam pointed on earth. Max Kellerman's taking Iguodala. He's made clutch shots time and time again.
True.
Iguodala can get it done.
To be fair to Max Kellerman, I think he said that after game 1 of the Warriors Raptors series. And in game 2 in Toronto, who hit the clutch 3 to ice that ball game? It was Iguodala.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, so I guess from that standpoint, I just cannot see the Warriors like having Simmons and Draymond at the same time. Like two guys that can't shoot is brutal. But it's a step further than can't shoot. It's like, yeah, there's can't shoot like someone who shoots like 30% from three. Like say Ja Morant, 30% from three. Like you wouldn't want him taking contested threes, but if you can't just let him sit out there and just shoot open threes all day. With Ben Simmons, you literally just like stand inside of the elbow and you say, please, like shoot from out there. So from that standpoint, I can't see that working. But I do think if they were to move off of Draymond, which I don't think they ever will or should, then you insert Ben Simmons in the kind of Draymond role. Like he, as a playmaker, can do some of the things Draymond can, and I'd say he's almost a better playmaker. Draymond's passing is probably better, though. Draymond's really good at passing.
So? But Ben's probably got a better handle.
Who?
Ben Simmons probably got a better handle.
Ben Simmons, imagine transition. That's what I was going to get to. Like, transition would be great, but I don't know. I think I'd rather have Draymond, personally. I just can't see them getting, like, him being in another uniform at the end of the day. But yeah, that would be an interesting one. Here's the one that I thought of that realistically makes sense because it fits the need more so than maybe any team. I know people say the T-Wolves, but who's the one guy people always compare to Steph Curry throughout their careers? Damian Lillard. They've always been, the top of the top point guards for the 2010s. They get compared all the time. And I think Ben Simmons on the Blazers, they need to do something. They need to either blow it up or start making changes because the clock's ticking. And Ben Simmons would fill the role of being a really, really good defensive-minded player. And he can do some of the things that Draymond can do. Now, whether you get him to buy into that Draymond role, I don't know if they can do that, but I really do think he'd fit because right now the only plus defender they have is Covington, and you need more than that. I mean, we've seen it's the same story and over. They get into the playoffs. We think they're gonna, go far. They made the Western Conference Finals, but their defense, you can't win a championship without a really good defense in the NBA. I think that's proven time and time again.
It's not even that they have a bad team defense. They have bad individual defenders. Dame is not a good defender. CJ is not a good defender.
Mm-hmm.
Melo wasn't a good defender. Nurkic is not a great defender. Hassan Whiteside blocks a lot of shots, but he's not a great defender. So, like, they've had defensive issues. I 100% agree with that. My one thing I wanted to touch on, because I do like the Blazers fit, I just think that the Blazers, in order to acquire Ben Simmons, would just have to give up everything else that makes up what their team is at the moment. I think they would have to give up a Norman Powell, which would be a huge get for Philly, by the way. I'd probably have to give up CJ too, although CJ, Tobias Harris as your quote-unquote big three next to Joel Embiid, I wouldn't want to be a part of that. That's awful. Not awful, excuse me. That's not ideal as a big three. But what I did want to say is you talked about Ben Simmons in transition. To me, that's where I keep going back to. Just put 4 shooters around him. He's never going to be a half-court ball handler because of his inability to shoot, his unwillingness to shoot. And I think that affects him as a decision maker too. But again, if you can use him kind of a bootleg version of the way Milwaukee used Giannis when Bud first came there, he could be mighty lethal handling the ball in transition with 4 shooters, with his passing ability, his ability to finish with both hands, and his ball handling at his size to go with his defense. I think that's the best case scenario because I don't know if you could find a role for Ben Simmons to be a integral part of a championship team because,
I
again,
agree.
you brought up the Draymond role. Do you think he could do what Draymond could do? Because when
Not
the
to the
Warriors
same
won
level.
championships, Draymond Green was a very, very effective and willing offensive player, and he was willing to take shots when they were available. The issue with Ben Simmons and why people get so upset with him is not the lack of ability, it's the lack of willingness. He just does not take shots. I mean, he passed up an open dunk in the playoffs to pass the ball to Matisse Thybulle, who's known
Yeah,
for his
a great
defense.
shooter. Only kidding. He was making shots that series though. He was making a lot of threes. But no, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun to see where he goes. I actually like that you added in this topic because we didn't discuss it. I think it's a good conversation. I still think Ben Simmons is a hell of a player. I just think that, like if my Pistons traded for Ben Simmons, like if they didn't have Cade, like, or what if the Rockets, got rid of John Wall, traded for Ben Simmons, and you have Ben Simmons running up and down the floor with Jalen Green and Josh Christopher and all those guys, like that'd be fun to watch. Now,
maybe the
would you
Magic.
win?
I'm,
Would
I'm
you
trying
win
to
a lot
think.
of basketball?
I mean, realistically, you could get like a 10 seed. You would. I don't think you'd be like the worst team, but also like if you ever played a team where it's like if you ever played playoff basketball where it's a lot slowed down, you're playing only half court. Yeah, you're probably
Yeah,
gonna
that's
struggle.
bye. Yeah, you're gone. But
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I
it'll
mean, bottom line, Vish maybe thinks the Warriors or a team that just could basically have Ben Simmons and four shooters on the court at all times, whatever NBA team that is. And I'm going with Blazers because they need just any defensive semblance or any help with on defense, pretty much, because they only have a two above average defenders in our eyes. But yeah, so Warriors, Blazers, maybe Rockets or Kings or Magic, someone who can just have him as the just the star of your team.
Yeah, well, even like the Magic, they have a lot of these young pieces where like, would you want to trade all of them to get Ben Simmons and
You
put
wouldn't
him
have
on
to
a
trade
team with
all of
more
them.
young pieces?
You wouldn't have to trade all of them. I mean,
You'd have to
you got
trade
to
some of them.
some of them, yeah. I mean, you got to fill the cap space somehow, I guess, but put people in the stands. But yeah, so that's Ben Simmons trade talks.